Imagine you have just made a mistake. Perhaps you forgot an important deadline at work, or maybe you snapped at a friend during a stressful moment. The event itself is over, but the internal reaction is just beginning. For some, this reaction is a pang of regret, followed by a desire to fix the situation. But for others, the reaction is a heavy, sinking feeling in the pit of the stomach. It is a voice that does not say, "I made a mistake." It says, "I am a mistake." This distinction sounds subtle, but it is the defining line between two very different emotional experiences: guilt and shame. Guilt says, "I did something bad." Shame says, "I am bad." This shift in perspective changes everything about how you navigate your life, your relationships, and your own self-worth. If you often feel that you are fundamentally flawed, or that there is something broken inside you that others must never see, you are likely wrestling with shame. It is one of the most painful human emotions because it attacks your very identity. It suggests that you are unworthy of connection or belonging. However, this feeling does not have to be a life sentence. To understand why this happens, we need to look at the psychological function of these emotions. Guilt, in its healthy form, is actually a helpful tool. It is a pro-social emotion. When you feel guilty, you are focusing on your behavior. You realize that your actions did not align with your values or that you caused harm to someone else. Because the focus is on a specific action, the solution feels tangible. You can apologize, you can make amends, and you can change your behavior next time. Guilt motivates repair. It bridges the gap between people. Shame operates differently. It is not focused on what you did, it is focused on who you are. Because the problem is located within your core identity, there seems to be no solution. You cannot apologize for your existence. You cannot fix a personality that feels inherently defective. Therefore, while guilt motivates you to move toward others to repair the bond, shame motivates you to move away. It urges you to hide, to withdraw, and to conceal your true self to avoid rejection. It is a survival mechanism gone wrong, convincing you that if people saw the real you, they would leave. This dynamic plays out in specific, recurring patterns in adult life. The first common pattern is the tendency to ruminate on past errors for years. We all have memories of awkward moments or failures. However, healthy processing allows these memories to fade over time. The shame spiral keeps them vivid. You might find yourself lying in bed at night, suddenly gripped by the memory of a conversation from 5 years ago. You feel the heat rising your cheeks as if it is happening right now. This happens because the memory is not just a record of an event, it serves as evidence. Your mind uses it as proof of your defectiveness. You are not remembering that you told a bad joke. You are reminding yourself that you are socially awkward and unlovable. This constant replaying prevents you from learning from the past because you are too busy using the past to punish your present self. You get stuck in a loop of self-criticism that drains your energy and lowers your resilience. The second pattern is an intense defensiveness in the face of criticism. In a professional setting or a relationship, feedback is necessary for growth. If you are operating from a place of security, you can hear a critique, evaluate it, and decide if it is valid. But if you carry internalized shame, criticism feels like a life-threatening attack. When a partner complains that you didn't do the dishes, you don't hear a request for help with housework. You hear a confirmation that you are a lazy, inconsiderate partner. Because the critique feels like an assault on your character, you naturally put up a shield. You might lash out in anger, list all the things your partner has done wrong, or completely shut down and refuse to talk. This is not because you are stubborn. It is because you are trying to protect a fragile sense of self. Admitting a mistake feels impossible, because in the logic of shame, admitting a mistake confirms that you are worthless. This makes conflict resolution incredibly difficult and leaves you feeling misunderstood. The third pattern is the physical urge to disappear. Shame is a somatic experience. It lives in the body. When shame is triggered, you might physically slump. You avoid eye contact because eye contact feels like exposure. You might find yourself withdrawing from social plans, not because you are introverted, but because the effort of performing a normal, acceptable persona is exhausting. You create distance to stay safe, but this distance reinforces the feeling that you are alone and different from everyone else. Breaking this cycle requires us to consciously change the internal script. The first practical tool is to separate your identity from your actions through language. This sounds simple, but it rewires how your brain processes failure. Catch yourself when you use "I am" statements. If you burn dinner, the automatic thought might be, "I am such an idiot." Pause and correct it to, "I burned the dinner. That was a careless mistake." You are moving the judgment from the person to the event. "I am lazy" becomes, "I procrastinated on this project." "I am unlovable" becomes, "I am going through a difficult breakup." By linguistic reframing, you turn an unchangeable character defect into a manageable behavioral issue. You cannot fix being an idiot, but you can fix a burned dinner or a procrastination habit. This restores your sense of agency and stops the shame spiral before it hits the bottom. The second tool is the self-compassion pause. When you are in the grip of shame, your internal dialogue is likely harsh and abusive. You might be saying things to yourself that you would never say to a friend or even a stranger. To interrupt this, try a physical grounding technique. Place a hand over your heart or on your stomach. This physical touch signals safety to your nervous system. Then, acknowledge the pain without judging it. Say to yourself, "This is a moment of suffering. Shame feels really hard right now." Then, offer yourself a phrase of kindness. It could be, "May I be kind to myself in this moment?" Or, "Everyone makes mistakes. This is part of being human." You are not letting yourself off the hook for bad behavior. You are simply creating a safe, emotional environment where you can actually look at the behavior without collapsing. You cannot learn or grow when you are being beaten down by your own mind. The third tool involves the antidote to secrecy. Shame grows in the dark. It convinces you that you are the only one with these thoughts or these failures. The most powerful way to dissolve shame is to share it with someone who has earned the right to hear it. This does not mean broadcasting your failures to the world. It means finding one trusted person, a partner, a close friend, or a mentor, and speaking the thing you are ashamed of. When you say, "I feel really ashamed that I haven't finished that project yet," and the other person responds with empathy rather than judgment, the shame loses its power. You realize that your terrible secret is actually a very common human struggle. This experience of empathy breaks the isolation. It proves to you that you can be imperfect and still be accepted. It replaces the lie of "I am bad" with the truth of "I am human and I am struggling." There is a pervasive myth that we need shame to keep us in line. We often believe that if we stop shaming ourselves, we will become complacent, lazy, or immoral. We think being hard on ourselves is the only way to achieve excellence, but psychology tells us the opposite. Shame drains your cognitive resources. It puts your brain in a state of threat, which reduces your creativity, your ability to solve problems, and your empathy for others. People who are motivated by guilt or a desire for growth tend to improve over time. People who are motivated by shame tend to hide their mistakes and repeat them. You do not need to hate yourself to be a good person. In fact, accepting yourself is the prerequisite for true growth. You cannot improve something you are too afraid to look at. Consider the difference between two people who both snap at their children. One parent feels shame. They think, "I am a terrible mother." They withdraw, sulk, and avoid the child because they feel unworthy. The child feels the distance and gets anxious. The other parent feels guilt. They think, "That was a bad reaction. I was tired." They go to the child, apologize, and explain that they were frustrated. They reconnect. The guilt served the relationship. The shame damaged it. As you move forward, try to notice when that heavy cloak of shame falls over you. Notice when you start using global, negative labels for yourself. Remind yourself that your worth is not on the table every time you make an error. You are a complex, evolving individual who is capable of both brilliance and blunders. You are not your mistakes. You are not your past awkward moments. You are the person who is living through them, learning from them, and trying to do better next time. The next time you falter, ask yourself this: if I treated myself with the same kindness I offer to others, how would I handle this moment differently? The answer to that question is your path out of the shadows.